2014, which means it's 100 years ago that the First World War started. A very long time ago, in fact. But I wonder how many of you know just how many brands that were in existence before the First World War are still with us today. Brands like Johnnie Walker Whiskey, Standard Bank, Old Mutual, Mrs. Ball's Chutney, for example. They were all there before that epic war began. What gives a brand longevity? Well, with us now, Jeremy Sampson, chairman of Interbrand Sampson de Villiers, a global expert on brands and branding. Jeremy, greetings and welcome. What gives a brand legs?
Chris, that's the challenge for any brand developer. How do they create something that you like, I like, perhaps our children like, and perhaps our children to come will like? And that's where, when you name the sort of brands that you've mentioned, how is it that they still exist? Now, when you think that every new thing that's launched, something like 90% will disappear within 5 years, yet here we have this whole swathe of brands that have been around for over 100 years. Look what they survived. Wars, famines, weather, changing cultures, all sorts of things, yet they're still there. And that means they have to stay relevant to you and me, relevant to everybody. They still need to resonate, and they still need to stand out from the crowd and be distinctive. Those are the key things for a brand to be sustainable.
Can you build that into a brand from the word go?
No, not from the word go. A lot of things, of course, don't start as brands. I guess in the IT world, more and more we're almost having instant brands. After all, the ages of the Facebooks, etc., are very, very young. But for the most part, you have a company which has a product or a service. Over time, it becomes well known, and then it starts taking on the attributes of a brand, adding value, the qualities of it, making it, as I say, something special. We have lots of things in South Africa that are companies or products. They're not really brands. They'll come and go. Even in the wine industry, they have labels. They'll come and go. But once you get to a brand, there's a certain sustainability.
What's the core in the relationship with the consumer? What makes those brands that we mentioned so special?
Well, I'm sure in your criteria you have my brands, things you relate to. Your wife might have a different set of my brands, your children, etc., your parents. And that's where every marketer wants their brand to become a my brand. Now, it's very interesting that one of the major brands that's growing incredibly well at the moment is Dove. Now, is Dove soap? Is it deodorants? Whatever. But Dove, go back 5-10 years ago, was a female brand. Today, it stretches across. It's even sponsoring men's rugby and things like that. And this is where that brand is becoming relevant to a much wider audience.
You mentioned South Africa's wine farms, the wine industry, but of course Johnnie Walker Scotch Whisky, been around I think for over 200 years, or very nearly. What is so special about that brand?
It's got heritage, it's got continuous quality, and that's a key thing. It has continuous availability. If you and I want it, it's there, but it stays relevant. One of the key things with younger people, you don't want a brand that's like a brandy brand that dies off with your consumers. You want to keep it young, which keeps on going. And tastes are different for younger people. They like sweeter things, perhaps. There are fashions that will come and go. And this is where Johnnie Walker has been so clever, creating different blends, different tastes. They've got the basic black, gold, blue, green, whatever, but then they have other things and specials that come in. And that is what keeps the interest. There's nothing boring about it. It's on the go all the time. And that's where a brand has to stay relevant. That's the key thing. It can't afford to stop, slow down, because the competition will be all over it.
In other words, you have to tend that brand every day very carefully if you want it to be around in 100 years.
Absolutely. You know, you look at the values of companies, often the major value is in the brands. Those are the major assets. So everyone within the company must be behind those brands, be behind them, support them, look after them, and make sure that they're all brand ambassadors. And that means the financial investment, but also the emotional investment.
If you had to pick a couple of modern brands of today that are going to be around 100 years from now, would you care to speculate?
I wouldn't, because when you look at a Facebook, a WhatsApp, the brands we're talking about at the moment, when you look at Interbrand's top 100 brands by value, you know, you look at the Apples. How many times have people said Apple will be dead, it'll be gone? And it nearly was once, but it's come back again. But you look at the Googles and people like that. Google, to me, is an incredibly exciting brand, as is Apple, my favorite brand, but also Amazon. But will they be around Amazon might be, but perhaps in a different iteration. But again, from Amazon when it started to what it is today is a huge difference. And this is where it's staying resonating. And what do you need? You know, it started with books, now it's just about anything, and it's totally global. But it'll be interesting to see, but I'm sure there'll be a lot that will fall away very quickly.
I'm sure you're absolutely right. A glimpse of the past and a glimpse into the future. Jeremy Sampson, Chairman of Interbrand Sampson de Villiers, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.